What is it about certain works of art? How do they not just last, but travel, across the world to find new homes? That's something I often wonder about. And that's exactly the journey we're taking today on the Deep Dive. We're looking at two absolute masterpieces by Vincent van Gogh, Irises and The Starry Night. Our mission, to explore the really surprising stories behind how they were made, what makes them so significant, artistically speaking, and how they eventually ended up in two major American museums, the Getty in LA and MoMA in New York.
Yeah, and it's more than just tracking paintings on a map. It's really a human story, isn't it? You've got this incredible artist, the people who really believed in him, and all these, well, unexpected twists that brought his art here.
Definitely. So let's start with Irises. Okay, Picture this. May 1889. Van Gogh voluntarily checks himself into the Saint-Paul-de-Mauzol Asylum, Saint-Remy-de-Provence, France. It seems, I don't know, counterintuitive, being in this confined space, but then creating something so vibrant.
It really is remarkable, and he painted irises fast, like within his first month there. He found real solace in the hospital garden. He actually called painting his art therapy. It was a way to keep himself grounded.
Art therapy, yeah.
And he was pretty optimistic, at least initially. He wrote to his brother Theo saying something like, I believe all my faculties for work will come back quite quickly. And he even mentioned starting a painting of violet irises right then.
Incredible. And despite being confined, the painting itself feels so open, so dynamic. You've got these amazing blues and violets, the green leaves, that sort of reddish earth, and those brushstrokes. So much energy, but there's this one detail, isn't there? Something physically linking it to the garden. Tell us about the pollen cone.
Ah, yes. That's such a great detail. There's actually a tiny pollen cone, probably from an umbrella pine in the garden, embedded right in the paint.
Oh.
It really speaks to how he worked quickly, immersed right there outdoors. He called irises a study, remember? And there aren't any known drawings for it. He just went for it.
Straight onto the canvas.
Exactly. And the analysis the Getty did is fascinating, too. It shows how the colors have changed, what looks blue to us now. It was originally this really vivid violet. He mixed a red pigment, geranium lake red, with blue, but the red faded.
So it would have looked quite different.
Oh, absolutely. Much more intense. And other areas that seem kind of muddy brown now, they were once brilliant orange or vivid red. Time changes how we see these things.
So thinking about that original intensity,
Yeah.
how does his interest in Japanese art fit in? He collected those prints.
Yeah, absolutely central.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a lot of artists then, he loved Japanese ukiyo-e prints. He wasn't just copying, though. He was absorbing elements. You see it in irises, the big flat areas of color, the strong diagonal lines, how the flowers push right up to the front. For Van Gogh, Japan and Provence felt similarly exotic, places with stronger light, brighter colors. And he specifically associated irises with Japan.
And this connects to his ideas about color, too. It wasn't random.
Not at all. He was very aware of color theory, particularly the work of Michel-Eugène Chevreul, the French chemist.
Chevreul, simultaneous contrast.
Exactly. The idea that complementary colors like yellow and violet make each other look more intense when you put them side by side. Charles Blanc wrote about it too in a popular book. So when Van Gogh puts those touches of yellow next to the deep violet irises, he's deliberately making those colors pop. It's a calculated effect to create vibrancy.
So from the garden, his focus also shifts dramatically upwards. During that same time in Saint-Remy, he paints The Starry Night. Such a contrast to the relative calm of irises.
A huge contrast. Painted just a month later, June 1889, The Starry Night is all about those dramatic swirls, that thick paint, the impasto.
You can almost feel the texture.
Right, and that massive cypress tree in the foreground, like a flame reaching up. The whole thing just vibrates with energy, this cosmic vision. It's often seen as, his inner world projected onto the night sky. Though, interestingly, astronomers point out some real accuracy, too. The moon, Venus. It's a mix of observation and intense feeling.
But didn't Van Gogh himself have reservations about it later, feeling it was maybe too abstract?
He did, yeah. He reflected later that maybe reality had receded too far in that painting. It's funny how artists see their own work sometimes.
It is. But what's key is that both paintings, Irises and The Starry Night, which he called The Starlit Night, then they were shown together pretty quickly.
That's right. September 1889 at the Société des Artistes Indépendants. His brother Theo submitted them. Theo saw their power. He called irises a beautiful study full of air and life and said, the starlit night really strikes the eye from afar. Even if Vincent had doubts, Theo knew.
Okay, so this brings us to the next chapter. How did these paintings, made in this French asylum, get to the U.S.? This part of the story really hinges on one person, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It's crucial to remember Van Gogh hardly sold anything in his lifetime. Just one painting, The Red Vineyard, is confirmed. So when Vincent died in July 1890, everything, hundreds of paintings, drawings, went to Theo.
But then tragedy strikes again.
Exactly. Theo died just 6 months later, January 1891. Everything, the whole artistic legacy, was left to his widow, Johanna van Gogh Bonner, and their baby son.
Johanna. She suddenly becomes the guardian of all this art. She wasn't in the art world, was she?
No, not at all. But her decisions were incredibly important. She was strategic, dedicated, you could say. She basically built his posthumous fame.
How did she even start?
Well, she worked tirelessly. She organized his letters, which gave huge insight into his mind and art. She started organizing small exhibitions, first in Holland, then further afield, slowly, carefully building his reputation. It was a massive undertaking. For the Starry Night, she eventually sold it to a collector in Rotterdam, Georgette van Stolk, and then years later, 1941, MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art in New York, acquired it from her. It was actually the very first Van Gogh to enter a New York museum.
The very first, wow, and irises. That had an even more, well, dramatic journey to its current home, involving a record-breaking sale.
Oh, it really did. Its first owner after Van Gogh was Père Tanguy, the paint seller Van Gogh knew. Tanguy sold it to an art critic, Octave Mirbeau, in 1892 for just 300 francs.
300 francs.
Incredible, right? Fast forward to 1987. Sotheby's auction. Irises sells for $53.9 million to Alan Bond, an Australian businessman. It was the most expensive painting ever sold at the time.
53.9 million. But then, the story takes a twist.
A huge twist. Bond ran into serious financial trouble. He couldn't actually complete the payment.
He defaulted on the most expensive painting in the world.
Pretty much. So the painting had to be resold.
Yeah.
In 1990, the J. Paul Getty Museum in Los Angeles acquired it, and that's where it's been ever since.
An unbelievable journey.
Absolutely. And even today, adjusted for inflation, it's still way up there among the priciest paintings ever sold.
So these two incredible paintings, Irises and The Starry Night, born from such intense moments in Van Gogh's life, they took these completely different winding paths, driven by his genius, yes, but also by people like Johanna van Gogh Bonner and the wild forces of the art market.
It really shows that an artist's legacy is about more than just the canvas. It's about the advocacy, the preservation, sometimes sheer luck that lets us see these works today.